After starting a relationship with the school's bully, his sweetheart came back. In front of everyone, she tore my skirt high-key. Jack immediately took off his jacket and wrapped it around me, his voice cold. "She's my girlfriend. If you dare to mess with her, be prepared to face the consequences." But later, when a car came rushing, he pushed her out of the way first. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the year he pursued me fiercely. The whole school knew that the bully Jack liked the school flower Linda. For me, he quit smoking, quit drinking, stopped fighting, and was willing to give me anything he thought was good. Despite being at the bottom in academics, he chased after me and got into a top-tier university in his senior year. He was arrogant and disdainful towards everyone, yet he always looked proud when bragging to his mates. "My Linda is just beautiful." But it was only after dying once that I realized all his kindness towards me was because of someone else. Someone who looked just like me. Jack scored again. So hot, my nose is about to bleed. At that moment, Jack had just made a three-pointer, earning loud cheers from the crowd. Everyone stood up and cheered. He waved off some girls offering towels and glanced at the audience, then ran over. As he moved, the cheers became even louder. I heard a soft laugh behind me. "Nina, your sweetheart is quite something. Not only is he handsome, but I'd also give those abs a perfect score." Another girl's voice was filled with absolute confidence and pride. "Of course, I've liked him since we were kids." That voice was all too familiar, Jack's sweetheart, Nina. In my previous life, I didn't know who the person behind the voice was. Now, I really wanted to ask Jack. "Who are you running towards under the watchful eyes of thousands?" Lost in thought? A shadow unexpectedly covered me. I looked up to see Jack's smiling face. He handed me a bottle of juice with a radiant smile, from the basketball team. I specifically told them to get the brand you like. I hadn't even reacted yet, but the people around us had exploded. "I can't take it. I'm going to faint. This is too sweet. Jack looks so much more handsome up close. Those features are model-like. I'm dying." Jack clearly heard the commotion. With a look of satisfaction, considering how his recent advances had moved me, he seemed quite proud. However, I didn't even reach out to take the juice from him. I glanced at him briefly and then looked away. The noise around us gradually subsided, and Jack froze for a moment. He awkwardly asked, "If I win this game, can I treat you to lunch to celebrate?" "Sorry, I'm busy. I have to go." I picked up my bag and headed down the stairs. Jack hurried to follow me, but then Nina called out to him. "Jack. It's me, I'm back from abroad." Surprised? Jack didn't respond to her and continued following me down the bleachers. "Linda, what's wrong today? Can you at least talk to me? Please don't ignore me." He could have blocked my path, but he just followed me like a tail. I could sense the panic on his face without even looking back. "Is it fun?" A hint of sarcasm appeared at the corner of my mouth. "Now that the original one is back, what's the point of having me, the substitute? It's just to make her jealous, to get back at her for abandoning him." "Linda, did I do something wrong to upset you? You can hit me, yell at me, vent your anger. I'm standing right here, hit me all you want." I was already one step out of the gym door when I heard Jack's voice and paused. "Hit you all I want?" I looked at him and started to laugh. Jack seemed mesmerized by my gaze. He stared into my eyes, followed suit, and nodded. "Hit me all you want." "All right." The next second, I slapped him hard. His pale face instantly swelled up red. He was stunned, his head turned to the side from the slap. He looked at me in disbelief, his eyes filled with hurt. "Does it hurt? But this pain is nothing compared to the pain I felt when I was hit by the carrots, nothing compared to the pain in my heart when I saw you instinctively choose her. You were the one who came after me first. Why did everything change all of a sudden? Your momentary whims destroyed me, making me fall deeper and ultimately cost me my life." "Jack." Nina ran out and saw the scene. "You bitch, what gives you the right to hit him?" She charged at me, furious, ready to slap me. But before her hand could touch me, Jack grabbed her wrist. No one has the right to touch her. In that moment, he seemed like the arrogant and domineering boy he once was, coldly shrugging off Nina's hand. He used so much force that Nina almost fell. She stumbled a few steps, steadied herself, and exploded, "Jack, are you crazy? She just hit you. I was standing up for you. And I wanted her to," he said gravely, touching the spot where I had slapped him. I suddenly remembered that a few days ago, Jack had led a gang fight against some mixed-up kids at another school who had tried to hit on Mayhay had probably gotten a scrape in that very spot back then. Looks like I just added insult to injury. "Linda, I'm serious." I had no interest in his performance. I scoffed and turned away. When I got home that day, I blocked all of Jack's contacts. Thinking carefully, everything in my past life had signs. Since Nina came back, Jack wasn't as passionate and persistent in pursuing me. I thought it was just natural changes after getting together. Now, it seems his heart was leaning towards Nina. It makes sense. Since coming back, Nina had been relentlessly messaging and harassing him. He seemed to be annoyed by it outwardly. But if he really disliked her, why wouldn't he delete her? If he really disliked her, why did he pretend to casually say happy birthday to her after playing games till midnight on her birthday? It was a long holiday, and to avoid him, I even stayed at my aunt's place for a while. My roommate told me that during this time, rumors about us on campus were crazy. Everyone knew that I had publicly turned Jack down and even slapped him. I knew all of this already. The top post on the campus forum was, "Linda doesn't know her place, publicly assaults Jack." There were many comments below, all saying, "Jack is so good to her, how could she do that? She should have been bullied by those thugs," but thankfully Jack went out late at night to fight for her. So what if she's pretty? She's ice cold. Poor Jack, such a nice guy, but he fell for someone like her. Suddenly, countless people were denouncing me, mostly girls who admired Jack. But soon, all those posts mysteriously got deleted. When the holiday ended, I thought enough time had passed for him to make up with Nina, but to my surprise, when I returned to the dorm early in the morning, I saw Jack squatting by the bushes, drawing circles on the ground with a cigarette butt strewn at his feet. Had he waited for me all night? The sound of my suitcase wheels startled him. He looked up sharply with bloodshot eyes that used to be clear and bright. He trembled, his messy black hair moving slightly. Then it seemed he remembered I hated the smell of smoke. In a panic, he started to sweep the cigarette butts away with his hands. I ignored him and pulled my suitcase to go upstairs. He stumbled after me, and I had never seen him look so pathetic. "Linda." His voice was so hoarse, it startled me. Jack tried to grab my arm but saw his dusty hands and quickly hid them behind his back. "Why did you block me everywhere?" His eyes were red, but he didn't dare look at me. "Do I need to report to you when I block you?" "And no." He shook his head hurriedly, whispering, "I remember you liked a dress once. My friend told me it was back in stock. I bought it for you. They also released new designs, and I bought those too." "Jack, I don't want your stuff." I calmly said, "Let's clear this up now. I don't like you. You're just intrigued by me. Don't do these things anymore, people will misunderstand." "No, Linda, I really like you, I really do." But no matter what he said, I wouldn't believe him. What could be more convincing than your subconscious reaction in a life or death moment? Everything he said after that just faded into the background. I felt dizzy and went back to the dorm. My roommates comforted me as soon as they saw me. No matter the rumors outside, they always stood by me and trusted me. They didn't ask what happened with Jack. They just prepared snacks, fruits, and warm water, and sat with me. "Just say the word, we're always here. If anyone dares to bully Linda, I'll punch them to death. Our precious isn't for outsiders to touch. Yeah, Linda, if you're feeling down, just call us. Anytime, we're here." Those words almost brought me to tears. They always gave me endless understanding and support. No matter how hard it was outside, coming back here felt like returning to a warm home. There was another reason I returned so early this time. Tomorrow was the school's anniversary celebration, and I, as the host, had rehearsed many times before the holiday. I had to be there for tomorrow's official performance. In my past life, it was in this very setting that Nina publicly tore my dress apart. This time, I wouldn't wait for Jack's fake rescue. Jack, Nina, every one of you who bullied me, I'll make you pay. The next day, while preparing backstage, I suddenly heard a commotion in the auditorium. My co-host went to check it out and came back excitedly. Jack looked especially handsome today and brought a big bouquet. But my eyes went past him, landing on Nina a few meters away. Her eyes filled with malice. I knew today would be a reenactment of my past life's miserable ordeal. In my past life, amidst the cheers and applause as I stepped on stage, Nina suddenly appeared and shattered all my happiness. In front of the live camera, she had torn my dress apart, leaving me defenseless and exposed to the public. Though Jack rushed to cover me with his jacket, the bone-chilling wind carved an indelible mark on my heart. Jack's voice was icy as he said, "She's my girlfriend. If you dare touch her, you'll pay the price." Yet the person who started it all got off scot-free. For a long time after, I had nightmares, crying as soon as I thought about it. The forums were filled with my photos and rumors, while the culprit got nothing more than a mild scolding from the teachers. She continued her reckless ways, even sending me taunting messages late at night. "Linda, what's wrong?" A clear yet slightly cold voice snapped me back to reality. I looked up to see a strikingly handsome young man watching me. I recognized him. He was Felix, the main organizer of this event and the student council president. I heard he's the son of a high-ranking government official, low-key and reserved, completely different from the wealthy and brash Jack. "I'm fine. Thanks for asking." I collected myself and smiled faintly at him. Felix stared at me for a few more seconds, then nodded slightly and walked off to continue his work. As soon as he left, a girl from our department rushed over. "Wasn't that Felix? He actually asked about you. I've never seen him talk to anyone first." Seeing her eyes light up and her voice growing louder, I quickly covered her mouth. "Keep it down. He's so outstanding, don't overthink it." She kept raising her eyebrows at me, her curiosity reaching its peak. "I don't believe you. Guys are all visual animals. Maybe Felix has taken a liking to you. Wait and see, I'll help you test the waters." No sooner had she finished talking, she suddenly shouted, "What? Linda wants to eat ice cream?" Her voice wasn't overly loud in the noisy backstage, but it was definitely noticeable. I didn't have time to cover her mouth and shook my head frantically. Luckily, everyone around was busy with their own thing and just glanced up with a smile. Felix also just looked up at me once. "Just watch, if a guy likes you, even the smallest thing you do will matter to him," another girl said, patting my arm earnestly. I shrugged. "Well, you're gonna be disappointed. He's so busy, and girls like him a lot. It's not like he'd notice a junior like me." But then, 15 minutes later, Felix, who had gone out at some point, came back with another guy, carrying a box of ice cream to the backstage. Sweat dripped faintly from his handsome brow. I remembered that it took at least 20 minutes to walk one way from the venue to the nearest supermarket. "Come on, everyone. Felix is treating us to Haagen-Dazs. Take your pick." Everyone screamed and cheered, running over. Maybe it was just my imagination, but it seemed like Felix looked at me specifically. I didn't have much of an impression of Felix. Our interactions were limited to work. Coincidentally, I was always on the same team as him every time we divided tasks. I actually liked it because if he was on the team, I didn't have to do anything. He always took care of everything excellently and efficiently, offering me lots of learning opportunities. As I ate my ice cream, I thought maybe this senior really looked after his juniors well. But liking me? No way. He was always surrounded by campus and off-campus goddess types. There's no way he'd be interested in someone like me. Soon, the audience filled the venue, and the school anniversary performance officially began. Just like before, my partner and I walked out from the backstage, greeted by cheers and camera clicks. As the spotlights focused on us for some reason, I glanced to the side. In the shadow of the lights, Felix stood there quietly, holding up a camera toward me. My heart suddenly started beating a bit faster. A bubble blown by a fan burst against my face, and I followed the planned route to interact with the audience. The next second, a lurking figure shot out from between the seats. My dress's neckline was already wide and extended to both sides, and the fabric was thin. If she used enough force, she could tear it wide open. But Nina miscalculated. She thought I would keep walking, but I stopped just short of her. A commotion erupted in the audience. I had warned my roommates that Nina might try something. Now seeing this, they angrily pushed Nina out under the cover of the crowd. Nina failed to land her blow and instead hit the stage hard, her forehead immediately reddening, nearly exposing her chest. In the process, girls around started screaming. Felix quickly brought some guys over and dragged Nina away. As he passed by me, he whispered, "Don't worry, just keep hosting. I've got this." I nodded and quickly regained my composure, taking control of the situation as a host should. Jack observed everything from the side. His dark eyes held a complexity I couldn't decode. He placed down the flowers he was holding and seemed to want to follow Felix out, but ultimately sat back down. A while later, when I looked at him again, his head was bowed, and the large bouquet lay on the ground beside him. He must have never guessed that his sweet, proud sweetheart could do such a thing. So embarrassing and pathetic. But it didn't matter, he would forgive her. Just like before, even if he took off his jacket to cover and hold me, he would only give a warning and do nothing else. My pain was all seen by him. He would cry with me, but couldn't do anything to Nina. The white moonlight wasn't just some radiant glow, but the starry reflection in his eyes when he saw her at just the right age. She would forever be her, and anyone after would just be others. Turning back onto the stage, I closed my eyes tightly. The last event of the anniversary was a masquerade ball. Last time, I didn't participate in this part and cried endlessly back in my dorm. If Nina hadn't shown up then, maybe I would have danced with Jack. But now, as I watched Jack absent-mindedly put on his mask, I felt no desire to dance with him. Classmates joyfully rushed onto the stage, nervously searching for their partners. I put on a rabbit mask, planning to slip away in the chaos. Just when I thought no one would recognize me and I could sneak off, a figure in a wolf mask walked through the crowd towards me. In the vast bustling hall, he still headed straight for me. Almost as if by magic, I froze in place. I watched his lips curve into a smile as he declined the invitations of other girls and bowed before me. "Miss Bunny, may I have this dance?" He bent gracefully, extending his hand towards me. His voice, usually cold and aloof, had a tinge of barely noticeable nervousness. There were so many people around, but my vision blurred except for him. His fingers were long and soft, with a small mole on his right thumb. As we danced, I could smell the faint scent of his cologne. His slightly upturned red lips and deep, clear eyes that were usually cold and distant now looked at me with warmth, flirtatiously affectionate. Most importantly, no one had ever made me feel this way before. As if he only belonged to me. In the vast sea of humanity, to him, I was the most special, and he was solely mine. Wolves are the most faithful animals, with only one mate for life. When one dies, the other leaves the pack and lives alone until death. A surreal image flashed in my mind. In my past life, after I died in a car accident, a young man went racing on that same mountain road and drove off the cliff. He had a mole on his right thumb. Despite the little hiccup at the start, the school anniversary event was a great success overall. The teacher was deeply moved, saying she witnessed the spirit and energy of the youth, which reminded her of her own younger days. She particularly praised my hosting skills, noting my calmness under pressure and excellent control of the situation. Felix suggested we all go out to eat. Everyone was invited. It was like a celebratory feast. After that dance, our relationship clearly got a lot closer. At this moment, he almost only looked at me when speaking. He was waiting for my response. I smiled, "Sure, Felix, that would be great." Surprisingly, Jack also wanted to join in this kind of setting. He seemed a bit hostile towards Felix, but Felix didn't mind. When we got out from the venue, Jack was waiting nearby, driving his extravagant sports car. The window rolled down, revealing his face with sunglasses, causing several girls to scream. His face turned towards me, as if wanting to speak, but he held his tongue. I ignored him. We were at a standstill until a Bugatti pulled up. I instantly spotted the driver. "Felix, give me a ride," I shouted, running over on purpose. As soon as Felix parked, I opened the back door, ready to get in. "Wait." He tapped the steering wheel. "Sit in the front." Holding back laughter, I answered and obediently sat next to him. There was a bottle of water on the seat. Felix was always so thoughtful. Meanwhile, a few fellow student council members ran over to fill the back seat. Through the rearview mirror, they exchanged knowing smiles but didn't make a fuss like others would. They even thoughtfully rolled up the windows a bit. With soft jazz music playing, we quickly reached the restaurant. Jack was always keen on speeding. He was clearly there a while, smoking in his car. He must have seen us in the rearview mirror because he put out his cigarette. "This shawl is for you. The wind is strong tonight, don't get cold." Felix handed me a gift box, the latest Hermes. I hesitated to take it when a senior laughed. He picked it out with much effort. "You should accept it." "Thanks." Before I finished speaking, Felix's window was rudely knocked on. Jack stood outside with a scowl. "Changed cars?" he sneered. "Interested in cars now, huh? Drag race, if you're man enough." To me, this behavior was utterly childish. I was sure Felix wouldn't react. He was always calm and rational, never out of line in any situation. Just as I was about to reject for him, the driver's window rolled all the way down. Felix actually turned to Jack with a smile. "Okay." When the engines roared and I saw both cars speed off, I snapped out of my shock. Have they lost it? I felt like killing Jack. I couldn't help but curse. Jack clearly wasn't interested in racing. He kept trying to bump Felix's car. In these treacherous mountain roads, a mistake could mean crashing over the guardrail. I'd seen Jack's driving. He always acted recklessly, and Felix was stuck with him closely chasing. But just when I thought Felix would be stuck behind, at the next turn, he suddenly accelerated, making a sharp drift. The screech of brakes echoed through the air. Even Jack, a daredevil, didn't dare overtake. "Felix, you're crazy." Seeing victory at hand, Jack fell way behind, cursing loudly. It was a close call. Had Jack not braked in time, Felix would have been gambling with death. I'd never seen his calm and composed side be this wild. Next to him, Jack looked insignificant. I stood there trembling, hearing a senior's voice. "He's always been a bit crazy." He paused, his smile fading a little, "but being crazy for what he wants to protect, well, that's worth it. I just hope the one he wants to protect will know." Jack lost. He got off his car with a dark face, while I was already grabbing Felix's hand, tears welling up. "See, I'm fine." Felix looked at me gently, his long fingers touching my nose. "Stop crying, your makeup will smudge." A flash of memory hit me. Freshman year in the student council, a senior sister always bullied me. Once, she stalled me from getting a signature deliberately. I was near tears standing there while she chatted and laughed on the phone. At some point, Felix arrived. He looked upset, his dark eyes cold. The senior sister was visibly startled, hurriedly getting to work. I stood there with my head down, not in the mood to greet him, and it felt like he just quietly watched me. "Merry Christmas." He suddenly spoke. "Thanks." Before the senior could finish her words, Felix handed me a gift. "Linda, remember to open it tonight." That moment stayed with me for a long time. He seemed indifferent, even his voice was bland, yet conveyed such warmth. I thought maybe it was a gift for all student council members. Later, I saw a notice on the school bulletin board that senior sister was unanimously voted out for misconduct. Clutching Felix's arm like an accessory, I followed him into the private room. After what happened, I was truly scared of losing him. I didn't want him away from me for a minute. Throughout the meal, I stayed close, and every time he spoke with someone else, he couldn't help but smile. The drag race scared me more than him. My hands shook, and Felix, noticing, kept helping with the food. We were so in sync that he would serve any dish I gave a second look. But the previous tension made me drink more water than eat. Midway through, I couldn't hold it and needed the restroom. If only Felix were a girl, I wished he could accompany me. But that was just a thought. I'm going to the restroom. I got up after speaking. As I left, I heard a senior sister's voice. Your junior is really cute. Felix seemed to chuckle. Thanks, she's always been cute. My face turned red. I couldn't help blushing when facing Felix quickly. I closed the door and ran, face covered. I turned on the faucet and washed my arms with cold water. Felix's image from earlier popped into my head. His profile was so sharp and handsome. When he looked up, his Adam's apple looked super sexy. When he put the drumstick in my bowl, he gently asked, "Want anything else?" Even while talking to others, he'd continue to serve me food and remind me, "Careful, it's hot." In that moment, I was already thinking about what we'd name our kids in the future. As I turned around daydreaming with my head down, I suddenly bumped into a hard chest. A hot hand grabbed my wrist, steadied me, and then slowly let go. It was Jack. Can you give me a reason? His fingers tightened and then loosened. Why did things just change between us? I really wanted to laugh. Yeah, there was a time when I wanted to ask the same question. Jack, let me ask you something. I looked at him. Back at that concert in the schoolyard, when you asked for my contact info, was it because I looked like someone else? His eyes flickered. Okay, I already knew the answer. I turned to leave, but he blocked me. I admit it. At first I approached you because you looked like someone I liked since childhood. But later I genuinely fell for you because of who you are. Linda, believe me. I know my feelings now. I just like you, only you. I lowered my eyes and laughed. Jack, if something starts with a mistake, it shouldn't continue. I once thought I saw sunshine and light brought by Jack. Little did I know, that light was cheap and common. Jack would never know. On the day of the accident, I was so happy to have a hand-woven scarf for him. If the accident hadn't happened, I should have put that scarf around his neck myself. I walked out of the bathroom alone. Jack didn't follow. Surprisingly, Felix was waiting outside for me. We didn't mention what happened earlier. He didn't ask, and I didn't say. But our hands quietly intertwined, feeling the warmth of each other's palms so naturally. We were together, without formal confessions or promises, already sure of each other's hearts. I suddenly wanted to ask him a question. Felix, when did you start liking me? He looked ahead, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. A long time ago. I noticed you were a strong and persistent girl. Even when you were the last one on duty, you checked everything carefully before leaving. It seemed like every time I was on duty, I'd see him on my way home. I had to admit, knowing he was behind me made the dark path not so scary. Too bad I never noticed before and always thought it was just a coincidence. I paused and then slowly asked, but what if I always had only Jack by my side? Then I'd always be behind you, waiting for you to notice my love. Waiting for you to be sure of your feelings. He would never pressure me. He'd take 99 steps, waiting for me to turn around so he could hold me without hesitation. In the second half of the party, we played many games, and Felix and I teamed up perfectly. Don't talk like that in front of Linda. Felix laughed and scolded. Protecting your wife already, huh? Everyone started teasing. It's getting late, I'll take Linda back first. You guys can keep playing, just put it all on my tab. Felix had a card here, loaded with enough money to cover my living expenses for a year. Everyone cheered, their fatigue dissipating, calling for more good drinks. He grinned, tossed them the card, and amidst explosive cheers, pulled me out the door. In the underground parking lot, Felix couldn't help but press me against the wall. Linda, my girlfriend. His Adam's apple bobbed fiercely, his beautiful eyes shining in the dim light. As we got closer, my breathing quickened. Felix, my boyfriend. As soon as those words left my mouth, he kissed me as if he'd lost control. His hand cupped the back of my head, pressing me against the wall, hugging me tight. The kiss was deep and lingering. It wasn't until we heard the sound of cars in the distance that he reluctantly let go. Girlfriend. His voice was raspy. From now on, you're mine. I buried my head in his chest. Linda belongs to Felix now. Just under my ear was his heart, beating loudly. I could hear his confession, clear and unending. I'm yours too. Everything of mine is yours. I love you, Linda. That night, the campus forum was bustling again. The headline was, I got a girlfriend. Online giveaway time. It was then I found out Felix was the forum admin. No wonder all the negative remarks about me disappeared so quickly. I used to think it was a system glitch. The excitement lasted for days. Meanwhile, I was walking through the campus looking at my phone when someone suddenly appeared from the side. Linda, you're shameless. After a few days, Nina's dark circles were even more pronounced. She stared at me and said, if I hadn't left Jack, you wouldn't have had a chance. You must feel great now, ditching Jack and climbing to Felix. I ignored her barking and kept walking. But she followed and kept on. Jack really liked me. He gave me all his allowance, learned to play basketball because I liked basketball stars, learned everything I liked. In middle school, if I was in a bad mood, he'd talk with me all night, and go far to buy me food and leave it downstairs. Many times, I saw him visiting my space late at night. Like in my previous life, Nina tried her hardest to provoke me. But all I could say was, oh. Nina, it's not Jack you like. You like being admired by him. Annoyed by her constant chatter, I stopped and said this. Nina was taken aback and stood there dumbfounded for a while. It's really sad. One of you is obsessed with an imagined perfect world and won't step out of it. The other is addicted to being pampered. But no matter how you look at it, neither of you should ruin someone else's genuine feelings. Nina was at a loss for words. I got a message from the guy on Instagram with whom I had shared a picture. He asked me out for dinner. I looked up, smiled, and said, I'm done talking with you. I'm off to enjoy a date with my boyfriend. But fate had other plans, and the car accident happened right on time. At that time, Felix and I were walking down the street after having hot pot. The evening breeze was gentle, the moonlight just right, and everything I saw in his eyes was bright and clear. Unfortunately, we ran into Jack and Nina. Both of them didn't look happy. When we bumped into each other, Jack was visibly sad. I never expected you to choose him, he said heavily. What's so great about him? I've been chasing you for so long. Jack, do you know the difference between us? For the first time, Felix spoke directly to Jack. The difference is, you don't know her well enough. You love the image you have of her. But with me, she can be vulnerable, she can be imperfect, and no one can hurt her. Just then, a blinding white light flashed, followed by the sharp screech of brakes. At that moment, the scene mirrored what had happened in my previous life. Screams from the crowd, the panicked face of the driver ahead, and dust flying in the air. Linda, get out of the way. I didn't expect this time. Both Jack and Felix pushed me aside. Luckily, no one was seriously injured. I fainted from the fright. The two of them got some scratches, but Nina had it worse with 3 broken ribs. Thankfully, no organs were damaged. The smell of disinfectant in the hospital woke me up, and I half opened my eyes. By the bedside, Jack stood with a fruit basket, and Felix was peeling an apple for me. I give up. I surrender. For the first time, Jack, who never admitted defeat, gave in with an expressionless face. Last night, I just wanted to push Linda away. But you were willing to use your body to shield her. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, Felix, but you're the craziest one." Felix focused on peeling the apple and responded softly, "Linda will wake up soon. Why don't you stay and have a meal with us?" "No, I don't think Linda would want to see me. I'm really sorry for causing her so much pain." Jack put down the fruit basket and walked out. At the door, he chuckled bitterly. "I know Felix isn't short of money, but I paid for this time's hospital fee. Besides that, I really don't know what else I can do for her." Although I wasn't hurt, they insisted I stay in the hospital for a week. During this time, Felix stayed by my side, and many classmates from school visited to check if I was okay. The day before my discharge, there was a fireworks show by the river. And I, unfortunately, missed it. I was frustrated, feeling that I had missed an opportunity to see it. Felix, with his good temper, let me vent and then gently rubbed my head, promising, "Linda, you'll have everything others have." On the night of my discharge, he mysteriously said he was taking me somewhere. He had changed to a different car, much more spacious inside, filled with flowers and stuffed animals, clearly treating me like a kid. Felix took me to the riverbank. There, his friends and my roommates had been waiting for a long time. They were starting a bonfire and barbecue, smiling and waving when they saw me. I took a few steps forward, and Felix suddenly called my name. "Linda." I turned around, and at that moment, huge fireworks bloomed overhead. Like countless red lanterns, they turned into a rainfall of colorful flowers, lighting up the night sky. Across the river, strollers gasped in amazement. I covered my mouth in disbelief. "Linda, these fireworks are all for you." The boy ran to me in the night. He hugged me. "And I am yours. Just yours." Epilogue. On Christmas Eve of freshman year, Felix gave Linda a gift. Inside was a ring, engraved with an L. But Linda forgot to eat it and kept it on display at home, worshipping it in admiration for the student body president. It wasn't until they got together that she discovered it. By now, that apple was, well, indescribable. "Linda, could you hide it any better?" Felix covered his face. I was shy. Who can tell Linda why her decent boyfriend turned into a clingy winner after they got together? In their sophomore year, they got married. In their graduation year, Linda was pregnant. She clenched her teeth, pounding her husband's shoulder. Felix, while helping his wife with her thesis, took her punches cheerfully. Later, with Felix's careful care, their son was born. They named him Tim. Felix said, "With our genes, I have no worries." Linda thought for a moment, that's true. As Tim grew, she soon realized he was just like his dad, reserved. He only dared to have secret crushes, never boldly talking to the girls he liked. He would even hide behind his parents when he saw a girl he liked. Blushing, he never dared to look. Linda looked at her husband, speechless. "He's just like you." Felix lazily replied, "I'm a bit better. At least I made sure we were on the same tasks together." Linda shouted, "You schemer. So it was no coincidence? You planned it all." In the past life, Linda died in a car crash, and Felix raced afterward in despair. The mole on his right thumb symbolized he had someone he loved deeply. Coincidentally, Linda also had a mole on her left thumb, symbolizing she was deeply loved by someone. That person came from the darkest of winters, living for love. Flowers bloom for a season, love lasts a lifetime. May everyone find their right person.